All right. So the 49ers, I mean, this game, Dolphins versus Cowboys, was arguably more important than 49ers versus Ravens, although I'd consider 49ers Ravens more important. But basically, this Dolphins Cowboys game was, besides the 49ers Ravens game happening later on, this Dolphins Cowboys game was the most important game of the week. Both teams had huge implications on the line. For the Cowboys, it was still kind of having a shot for the 1 seed as well as winning their division. For the Dolphins, it was getting the 1 seed and setting up a matchup next week with the Ravens that will decide the number 1 seed. Dolphins obviously get this win. They win it in a game-winning field goal scenario, 22-20. And I was just going to quickly come on here to break that down because this game, I mean, came down to the wire, and there were so many things that I kind of got out of this game. Obviously, I'll probably break this game down into further detail as the week goes on, but I just wanted to give you guys my instant reaction. So let's get it going. I'll share the screen here kind of just to give you guys, I might pull up a few stats from here, but initial thoughts. Dak Prescott was good in this game. Down the stretch, he made a lot of crucial plays, including that last drive where one of the plays he stepped up. It was like a 3rd and something, steps up, gets just absolutely bodied by a Dolphins defender and delivers a beautiful dart to CD Lamb. And there was a lot of plays in this game that reflected how, I mean, he was great under pressure. There were times when he'd roll out, deliver a dart across the middle to a tight end or a running back or whatever, or CD Lamb. So he was very accurate, very good in this game, but it was largely the game came down. It was largely out of his control, this game. And he did his job in the final minutes of this game. He was crucial in the final minutes of this game. They scored a touchdown in the final minutes, but it was largely out of his control because the Cowboys defense couldn't stop the Dolphins offense. And the reason I say that is, you know, a lot of times during this game, the Cowboys defense just couldn't stop Tyreek Hill. And I think it's time for us to start acknowledging that Tyreek Hill probably is the best, not only receiver, obviously, in the league, but the best defense or the best player in the league. We might say Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey, but I think Tyreek Hill is better than Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is really good for what the 49ers do. But I mean, Tyreek Hill in this game, there were a few times, especially down the stretch. I mean, down the stretch in that last drive that led to a game-winning field goal, one of the times they dumped it off to Tyreek Hill and he took it 20 plus yards, and that set up a big time field goal. There were also other times in this game where the Cowboys cornerbacks just couldn't cover him man to man. They had to play off zone coverage. And let's get into a little bit of what the Cowboys defense was doing in this game. Basically, you know, they were playing. I'm just trying to look for my notes. Let me see. Yeah, they basically, the Cowboys were not allowing the Dolphins to go deep, not allowing any big plays. But because they were doing that, because they were doing more padded zone coverage, they were allowing the Dolphins to hit a bunch of short throws to Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill is one of the best yak players in the league. And so by not giving up big plays, they were allowing almost Tua Tagovailoa to play into his strengths, which is hitting short throws and running the football. And I don't think the Cowboys' defensive game plan was good in this game because, yes, you were not giving up a ton of big plays, but at the same time, you were also just giving the Dolphins an opportunity to gash you across the middle and in short throws. And the problem with that is Tua Tagovailoa is terrible under pressure. And there were a few times in this game where he'd get under pressure and he'd fold. He's not good under pressure. And so by allowing him to hit all these short throws, you're allowing him to not be under pressure. What the Cowboys should have done is they should have allowed the Dolphins, they should have played more press man to man, allowed the Dolphins to go deep, because the thing is the Dolphins at times today, their offensive line was terrible. they what the Cowboys should have done is they should have played more man-to-man against the Dolphins. Yes, they would have given up more big plays, but they would have allowed Micah Parsons. They would have made Tua Tagovailoa hold onto the ball and allowed Micah Parsons and Lawrence and all the great pass rushers that the Cowboys do have to get home on Tua Tagovailoa and make him make quick decisions, which will make him do make mistakes. And so that's what they should have done instead of playing this padded coverage like they did do. I just don't think they had the right game plan against Tua Tagovailoa because ultimately Tua killed them in the short game, which is playing right into his strengths. So that's kind of something that I saw. And it makes Tyreek Hill an X factor because when you allow Tyreek Hill to get the ball in space, he's going to take it 20 plus yards. And none of the Cowboys players could tackle him today. And that just shows how dangerous the Dolphins system is in when you just it just shows how amazing how the skill position on the Dolphins team is. Skill position players on the Dolphins team is. So that was something I just don't think the Cowboys had the right defensive game plan in this game. But there was also penalty controversies. I mean, the refs at the end of the first half, the Dolphins were driving, they were in the red zone, and there was a roughing the passer call on Micah Parsons, which set up a first and goal inside the 5, and it set up a Dolphins touchdown at the end of the first half to put them ahead. And I mean, there was a lot of controversial calls and no calls for both teams, but mainly on the Cowboys. I mean, there were, that late hit on Tua Tagovailoa by Micah Parsons set up a touchdown, which probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. So that was really controversial. There was also another play in this game towards the end of the game where the Dolphins guard on a crucial third down, Dolphins guard, I think it was crucial third down, but Dolphins guard a Dolphins guard when they were running it just absolutely, I mean, he tackles the Cowboys defensive lineman, and basically the Dolphins were running a swing run, I believe it was to the right, and this Dolphins guard just tackles the Cowboys defender completely illegally, and it was not called. So there was a lot of controversy in this game that maybe contributed to the Dolphins winning in this game, but I will say that the defensive game plan was not good enough to stop this Dolphins team. But so let's get to more of the what happened on the offensive side of the ball for the Cowboys. Like I said, Dak was good. We can look up his stats, but down the stretch, he was making plays under pressure. And pressure has always been the thing that I think has defined Dak is he just can't make plays under pressure. Today, he did. He did. And I can quickly show you guys his stats. 20 for 32, 2 TDs, completion percentage of 62.5, QBR of 116. So he was really good today. But there was consistent pressure on Dak all day. I mean, really the biggest problem with both teams, but especially the Cowboys in this game, is the red zone woes that they had. They were not good in the red zone today, had to settle for a lot of field goals in the red zone. And part of the reason for that was the O-line on the Cowboys was a big problem. And again, they're missing their starting left tackle. They have their backup left tackle. And that really showed today. The Cowboys offensive line is not very good. They allowed Bradley Chubb, I believe it was 2 sacks, and then Van Ginkel had a big day as well for the Dolphins on defense. So the Cowboys O-line, especially in the red zone, killed them because what would happen was, especially in the red zone, there would be a penalty on the offensive line for the Cowboys, and then it would basically set up a third and long for Dak Prescott, and the Dolphins would bring a blitz, and they'd get to Dak Prescott, and they'd settle for a field goal. A perfect example was in the third quarter, 6 minutes left. Dallas gets a penalty called on them. They get backed up all the way to the 30, 35, something like that. And then it's a 3rd and 18. They don't convert, and they had to settle for a field goal. So offensive line was not good in this game, and that's because the Cowboys are very injured this year along that front. And it goes back to the thing I've been saying all year: the healthiest team in the NFL wins the Super Bowl. And that right now is the 49ers. The Cowboys just on offensive line wise is not a healthy enough team to win a Super Bowl. So that was a big thing. And that was a big thing that affected them all day. Their red zone woes were a huge, 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 huge problem for them all day. And that was in large part to the Cowboys offensive line. I do want to quickly shout out though CeeDee Lamb, who he had a good, really good day. 6 catches, 118 yards, and besides Tyreek Hill was probably the best player on the field. And we also have to shout out Tua, 24 for 37, 106 QBR was really good as well. And they ran the ball a lot down the stretch, and they had success running it down the stretch. So that was a big thing as well. Now they did lose Raheem Mostert. We'll see how long he's out for. So that's kind of something. Those are kind of the keys that I had. I'm looking at my notes. I don't think I had anything else. So guys, go have a good rest of your Sunday. Hey, Niners are playing tomorrow. That's going to be a big game. I'm going to be tuning in for that. So that should be really exciting. Until then, I'll be probably doing a show later on this week to recap the Niners and Ravens and some of the other things that happened around the league. So go and have a great day, everyone. And hey, Cowboys now, the Dolphins kept their 1 seed hopes alive. If the Ravens lose tomorrow, the Dolphins will be in the 1 seed, and that will set up a matchup against the Ravens next week to really decide who gets the number 1 seed. So the Dolphins took care of business. Now, if you're looking at the Cowboys side of things, now, the Cowboys look kind of out of control. They're definitely out of the conversation for the 1 seed and maybe even for the NFC East crown. And so now they're looking at the 5 seed again. And the problem with the 5 seed is you have to play on the road offs. And the Cowboys are not good at playing on the road. They've barely won on the road this year. So this was a bigger blow than a lot of people think. It was really good for the Dolphins, but also terrible for the Cowboys because now, playoff implication wise, the Cowboys have to play on the road for a lot of the playoffs, and that does not bode well for them at all. So, we'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your night, and go Niners.